Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Carlos Havel Jr. I am a benefit analyst with Lacers, and I'm happy to be joined today by my awesome teammate, Sandra Ford James. We welcome you both to the Tier 1 Retirement Benefits webinar. A couple of things before we do get going, because we do have a long program. Uh, in the invitation everybody received, everybody should actually have a link to the slides. In case you don't have the link or the invitation, or just probably went in your junk email, the slides can be found two different sections on our website, and also a full video can be found on our YouTube channel, which we'll mention throughout our presentation. So since we do have a lot to get going, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Um, so bear with me one second. I'm sure my
That's good, Carlos.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I was about to ask you. Okay, again, welcome to our Tier 1 Retirement Benefits webinar. Um, Throughout this presentation, you're going to hear a lot of information about your pension and the benefits you might have at the time of retirement. If for whatever reason, the heads up to you is that if I make a mistake or my awesome coworker, Sandra, make a mistake, just be aware that the plan provisions will govern at all times. So as I mentioned, we do have a long program today. It's actually two sections that we're going to go over, or a two-part presentation we're going to do. The first half, which I'll cover, we'll go over the lasers and overview, give you an explanation of services, how you become eligible, and also how you we calculate your benefit, that is. We're going to talk about some of the retirement options you have to select as you go through retirement process, taxes, Social Security, COLA, and going through the actual retirement process. The goal is that by the time I get done, we will have a representative from Voya join us. I think Latanya will join us about 10 o'clock today. If not, I'll pause my first half, let Voya go, or defer comp, excuse me. And afterwards, I can finish Mart. We'll take a 10-minute break, and then Sandra will close off with the second half, talking about options you have in case you leave employment, survivor benefits, health and dental benefits, and so on. Okay, so as we go into Lacers itself, Lacers has a board administration composed of 7 members. Of those 7 members, 4 members are appointed by the mayor, with one being a retired employee, two of them being elective active city employees, and one being elective retired city employees. The key is that 4 of the 7 board members are, have a vested interest in, as they are all Lacers members as well. In case you ever do want to participate or attend one of the board meetings, you're more welcome to do so. The board meetings are held on the second and fourth Tuesday at the Lacers headquarters. Throughout my presentation, I'm going to mention the importance of our website. And one of the biggest, or one of the most important documents you'll find on our website is the summary plan description. The summary plan description, basically everything I'm going to talk about today, or at least in this first half of this presentation, you can be found on here. So if there's something that you might have missed, or something you kind of need more information on, this document should be on there. And actually, there should be a link on your invitation that you got to this webinar that has a link to your summary plan description. Like I said, it's available to you as a soft copy on our website, lacers.org, if you've never been there. But it's something that you should be aware of, especially the closer you get to retirement, because you're going to refer to this document quite a bit. In case you didn't know, you pension is a defined benefit plan, or a 401(a). What that means to you is that it's a professionally managed trust fund. It provides a specific benefit at retirement based on your formula. What that formula is what we'll talk about, how you become eligible to retire. It offers a lifetime benefit to members who are vested, and the definition of vested for us is 5 or more years of continuous service. The plan also may include a cost of living adjustment. I'm sure that if you have, coworkers that have retired, they've talked about the COLA and how that kind of gives them a bump or a raise, if you will, every single year. Lacers membership. This is a tier 1 presentation, but in case you didn't know, there's actually 2 tiers, and the tiers are composed, or kind of where you fall in, it depends on when you were hired. So for all tier 1 members, you're considered tier 1 member, excuse me, if you were hired on or before February 20th of 2016, excuse me. You're tier 3 if you were hired after the 20th, so February 21st of 2016 to present time, you will be a tier 3 member. In order to be a Lacers member, you cannot be a sworn member. You cannot be part of DWP. And when you become a member, or or get hired by the city, and your department kind of lets us know that you are hired, you are automatically a member of Lacers. With that automatic membership comes an 11% contribution that is mandated. So I'm sure if you look at your pay stuff, 11% of your pay goes towards your pension as a contribution. So I just talked about that everybody pays 11% of contributions towards their pension. Well, that is just one type of money that goes in what's called the Lacers Pension Trust Fund. The Lacers Pension Trust Fund is composed of three types of money. As I said, 11% of contributions goes from our salaries, so that's employee contributions. But the city also puts in a portion as well. So there are city contributions that go into the pension trust fund. That money is then used by our investment team, and then the investment returns compose the third leg of the pension trust fund stool, if you will, that basically adds up together. And from that trust fund, what's paid out to us as members is your retirement allowances, any health benefits, any survivor benefits that you might be entitled to. And I just want to make a point that this slide will be important later on in the presentation, as I refer to it too, because again, this is important to know that there's three types of money. They go into the pension trust fund and what's paid out of that. So that moves us into service credit, and continuous service. Okay. So you might think that service and service credit are kind of the same thing, but they're really not. Service accounts for the years you've been a city employee contributing into Lacers, while service credits accounts the hours you've worked as an active Lacers member. A very common question I get, especially for those who are thinking about retiring, people always ask me, does it really matter if you work another week, another month, another year? The answer is always going to be yes, because the more years of service you have, the more hours of service credit you have, it all counts towards the calculation of your retirement benefit. Now, if you're a full-time employee, every single time that you're working and you're paying contributions to the plan, you are earning 0.03835 years of service credit for each pay period. If I have any part-timers listening, we basically are that we the hours you actually work are divided by 80, and that's what you actually get as service credit per pay period. Now, to kind of drive home the point a little bit more, I have an example here of two members, and it kind of gives you the difference between service and service credit and how we account for that. So we have Liz who works full time and has worked for 6 years, and we have Dan who works half time, so exactly half, 20 hours per week, and has also worked for 6 years. So the question I would pose is, what is Liz's total service? So I'll let you think for a second. Well, when you think about it, she is full time. She's working 40 hours, so 80 hours per pay period, has worked for 6 years. If you answered that Liz has total service time of 6 years, you would be correct. The second question would be, what is Liz's total service credit? Again, service credit counts for the hours. Well, 80 hours per pay period for 6 years. If you said 6 years, you would be correct as well. Now, if we move to Dan, Dan being a half-time employee working 20 hours for 6 years, if we ask what is Dan's total service time, again, service time is based on the years they've worked. Even though Dan's worked for 20 hours per pay period, the fact that he's worked for 6 years, Dan would have a total service time of 6 years. As we go to the last question, what is Dan's total service credit? Again, service credit being based on the hours. Since Dan has worked 20 hours per week or 40 hours per pay period for 6 years, Dan is considered to have 3 years of service credit because, again, it's based on the hours opposed to just the years. So hopefully this kind of makes sense. And just to kind of drive home the point even more, again, service helps determine your retirement eligibility. So when you can retire and if you're able to receive a health subsidy. What is a health subsidy? We'll talk about that a little later on. Service credit helps determine the amount of your retirement allowance. So when we calculate your benefit, it's based on hours. So how much you would receive on a monthly basis, how much health subsidy you receive towards your health plan premiums as well. So even though they might sound like the same thing, they help determine different things. So it's kind of important just to note what they both take care of. Now, continuous service is the sum of your uninterrupted city service with no breaks in service of more than 3 years. I mentioned vesting earlier, and the definition of that is 5 or more years of continuous service. So that service may be a combination of city employment or government service purchase. Service purchases I'll talk about in a few slides coming up. Now, here's an example of how continuous service works. On the left side, we have a member who has worked for 4 years, for whatever reason, decided to leave city service, was gone for 2 years. After that 2 year break, came back, has now worked the additional 5 years. Since the break of service is less than 3 years, this member is considered to have 9 years of continuous service for the simple reason that the break of service is less than 3 years. Member on the right worked for 5 years, for whatever reason left, was gone for 4 years. After that 4 year break, has come back, has worked additional 2 years. Now, even though this member has 7 years of service, they are considered to only have 5 years of continuous service. Why is it important? Well, continuous service helps determine retirement eligibility only. So that's kind of one of the first things that you need to, kind of meet as an invested being 5 continuous years of service. So that's kind of one of the first hurdles you will have to meet as you go towards your retirement benefits. Member statement. So in our website, hopefully everybody here has logged on and has activated their My Lacers account. If you have not, first homework assignment, make sure you go to lacers.org. Top left-hand corner, there's a My Lacers little button there. You push on that or link. And if you've never logged on before, you're going to register. It creates a PIN letter on our end. When you get that PIN letter, that's how you activate your account. But one of the most important documents that you'll find on here is a member statement. And I like just telling people that member statement kind of works as a snapshot of kind of where you're at currently your career. So it has all your basic information on there, it has your total service time, has your contributions amounts and whatnot. And I always tell people, you would definitely want to be, kind of just be aware that information is there and make sure that your information is accurate. We recently went through a payroll system change. You want to make sure that, the service time is being, is being calculated correctly. You don't want to be on the cusp of retiring and then finding that you're a couple months off, for what you thought, and it just maybe was a clerical error. You definitely want to stay on top of that, on there. But this just works as, like I said, a snapshot of information, kind of where you're at. I know that personally, I have used this document to, for big purchases. If you ever like refinancing a house, for example, that's actually a document that, that would be very helpful. So it's just good to know that that information is on there. And the best thing about it too is that it has your information on there. It should have your beneficiary information on there. And then besides the member statement, logging into your online profile, as it says on here, you're able to send information, secured messaging to us. You're able to set appointments, and also register to webinars and other events that Lacers offers our members. So that moves us into service credit purchases and reciprocity. So the benefits of service credit purchases, is that, kind of why would you want to do it? Well, it could count towards your retirement eligibility, and it could also increase your retirement losses are basically the two main reasons you would want to consider or doing a service credit purchase. Now, for our tier one members, there's 4 different versions or different ways you could do a service credit purchase, starting with a redeposit. What is a redeposit? Well, basically means that at some point you were hired by the city. For whatever reason, you decide to leave. When you left, you took your contributions and interest you've earned. Now you've been rehired by the city. Okay. So now you want to actually redeposit the money back to you. So one of the common themes you'll hear in these 4 different service credit purchases, in order for you to do a service credit purchase, you have to be an active member of Lacers. Okay. So this service for redeposits, it gives you who is eligible. Well, as I mentioned, people who withdrew members, excuse me, they withdrew their funds from after having separated from city service, or in the case of a divorce, their ex-spouse received a separate account from Lacers and subsequently withdrew that money from the account. If this applies to anybody listening today, you would want to go to lacers.org under the form section, and you would complete section A of the application to purchase previous city service. So that would be the first one, redeposit. And I just want to mention, when you do a service credit purchase, it's not like you're actually purchasing, so it's not like you're giving money to Lasers. All you're really doing is making yourself whole. The money you pulled out of the account, all you're doing is putting it back, and putting it back with the interest of what it earned if it would have just sat there. The second option is back contributions. Well, what this does, it allows current members, okay, that's a common theme, active current members, an opportunity to buy time. um, in that before they were actually hired or before you were actually hired with the city, a lot of people do get hired either as, seasonal, temporary, be full time or part time, or whatever department might need. And at some point, after 3 months, 6 months, or a year, you get hired as an active employee of the city. Well, a key thing, in case you don't know, is that there's a lot of people that I have run into that are kind of unsure if they can buy that time back. The key is, were you paying contributions into the Lacer's pension, or were you paying contributions into a separate deferred comp, or savings account, for example? If the answer is latter, that means that you were not a city employee because you were not paying contributions into the Lacer's pension plan. So if this applies to anybody out there, well, I'll just go through who's eligible. Again, was regularly employed by the city, full time, part time, and during that time was not a LACERS member or making contributions to LACER, as I mentioned. The second one would be, was regularly employed by the city and participating in a pension savings plan during that time, and you were not a LACERS member or making contributions to LACERS. Basically, the two things I kind of point out already is who is eligible for this, and as well as being an active member. If this applies to anybody out there, you would go again to lacers.org under the form section, and you would complete section B of the application to purchase previous city service. So that's two. The third one is public service uh, buyback. And this is for any current member who can purchase for uncompensated leaves of absence from the city, other than the maternity leaves. It allows active members to purchase city service credit lost due to a divorce when an ex-spouse is awarded a separate account allowance. So again, you have to be an active member, and you have to have at least 6 months of leave time while employed by the city, or have any service credit awarded to an ex-spouse through a separate account allowance. Those are the people who are eligible, as well as being an active employee. If this applies to anybody there, you would go again, lacers.org under the form section. You complete the application to purchase public service and acknowledgement of public service buyback, and that would be your third option for service credit purchases. And the fourth one is the government service buyback. Excuse me. This allows current active members to purchase service credit for periods of full-time service with any other government entity, or uncompensated maternity leave with the city itself. So if you, prior to being hired by the city, used to work for City of Santa Monica, for example, and they had a deferred comp opposed to being part of CalPERS or whatever that might be, well, you could potentially buy that service time and kind of make yourself whole. So the terminology, if you ever talk to a financial advisor, is you kind of put your eggs in one basket, if you will. So you're able to kind of put that service time into this your current pension with Lacers, or again, if you had any uncompensated maternity leave with the city. Again, you have to be an active member, and then for the city, the government service, that is, you have to have at least 6 months of uninterrupted full-time service with a single government entity, or for the case of the maternity leave, was on an uncompensated leave of absence for the city service for maternity reasons. Purchase can be a minimum of 1 whole month and up to a maximum of 12 months. And depending on which one of these you're looking to do, again, you go to lacers.org under the form section. For the government entity, you would complete the certification of service form. And then for the maternity leave, you would complete the certificate of uncompensated maternity leave form. So depending on which one you're looking to do, definitely want to make sure you complete the correct form. I knew the slide was coming up, so I didn't want to jump the gun. And it's just some friendly reminders if you're looking to do service credit purchases. If any of those service credit purchases options applies to anybody, listen, you definitely want to get on it as quickly as possible. Fill out the forms, provide as much information as you can. Let us do the research, and it does take a while. It will. Uh, I have people that have do wait a few months to even to hear back, just because of the fact that our buyback specials are overwhelmed with so many. But the big thing about it is that you don't want to be in the cusp of retiring trying to do a buyback, because in order for the buyback to be included and completed, I'm sorry, included and added to the calculation of retirement benefit, it has to be completed. So you won't be able to retire until that buyback service that service credit purchase is actually completed. All right. And you could only do it as an active employee. So it's not you could, you could stop working as a deferred member or even retire and expect to do the calculation after the fact. That's not how it works. All right. So you definitely want to get on as quickly as possible. And just let us do the work, even if you're considering doing it, or you might think that it might be too expensive. By you submitting a form, you're not committed. You're not obligated to go forward with it. All you are doing is letting us do the research, tell you if you're able to go forward with it or not, and if you are able to go forward, the amount and options of how you could pay your service credit. And if it's something you're able to do, you move forward with it, and if you're not able to do it, you say no, thank you, and that's it. Bottom line, let us do the work. You're not committed by doing so. And if you have any further questions, we always recommend you speak to a buyback representative at Lacers because they are a fountain of knowledge. Reciprocity. So reciprocity is something that's pretty near and dear to me because I actually established reciprocity myself. But basically, what this is an agreement between the different retirement systems in California. There's approximately 17, 18 systems altogether in California that reciprocity could be established with. And what it does, it kind of helps you keep your career in line, if you will. So I'll just use myself as an example. I previously used to work with the county of Orange, so Orange County, and given the opportunity to come work for the city, which I, of course, jumped on it. And then some of the rules for that is that when you go from one retirement system together, in my case, Orange County to LA. When I left Orange County, I basically left my contributions and interest on deposit or as a deferred member. All right. And then I started working with the CLA. So basically, I my last day in Orange County was a Thursday. My first day with the city was in LA was a Monday. So there's a clear separation date from one system, a clear date of hire from any other. It's less than 6 months. And I left my contributions since there. Once I got hired by the city of LA, I submitted a form requesting to reciprocity to be established. And then after a few weeks, a couple months actually, I got a letter saying that reciprocity was established. Why is that important? Well, there, as I said, you are able to kind of keep your career in line, if you will. And what that means is that as you go, once you establish reciprocity and you go on in your career, when you decide to retire, you're going to retire from both systems at the same time. And one of the perks of established reciprocity is that both systems will communicate to each other to see who has the highest salary. So in my case, for example, when I do decide to retire and I've, completed my career with the city of LA, I am gonna, hopefully be at a higher salary than I am now. I think that's the goal for everybody. Um, is that I'm gonna make Orange County use the higher salary at city LA and apply it to my formula there. Obviously, the formula here is going to be separate, and then they'll do the calculations, and I'll have two direct deposits. So there's people that kind of move around, and this might not apply to anybody out there, but if there's ever an opportunity for you to go somewhere else, just be aware that reciprocity is something that you should consider, keep in mind, and it kind of gives you a couple of different options there, as Lacera, CalPERS, Lacera, kind of two of the biggest systems out there. Orange County, I mentioned, but CalSTRS, I know I've had a lot of people that work as teachers as well that I have run into with the city of recent time. So if this applies to anybody out there, just something to keep in mind. And kind of just heads up to you is there's this full time and there's full reciprocity, limited reciprocity. I think the limited reciprocity is kind of a moot one because it's a little bit out of date a little bit, but the reciprocity service is considered for vesting, and your years of service are combined for all reciprocal agencies and eligibility. And this full reciprocity, that means the transfer between the two agencies occurred on or after July 14th, 1997. The limited, it was prior to July 14th of 1997, which I don't think applies to any of most people now, but just be aware of that. And then just some of the last kind of heads up for the rules of reciprocity. When you terminate from one reciprocal government entity and move to another, it has to be within 6 months. There cannot be any overlapping time. I kind of pointed out that I left my last day of work when I was trying was a Thursday. My first day working with the CLA was that Monday. So even though it was only a 3-day, 4-day window there, but if you're greater than 6 months, the reciprocity cannot be established and it cannot be overlapping. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's one of the things too. You leave your contributions and interest on deposit, as I mentioned, in each retirement system. You apply for reciprocity in both systems, and agree reciprocity exists. It does take some time, so you definitely want to submit out your form. And then you retire from both systems the same day, as I mentioned as well. If this applies to anybody, definitely want to go to lasers.org under the form section, and you definitely want to complete the reciprocity or certification of service form, that is, which will help you establish reciprocity. I did it myself. It takes a little bit of time, because the systems do have to communicate with each other, but do it now. You don't want to be in the cusp of retirement, as I mentioned, and kind of establishing that, and it could potentially delay your retirement date or push back your retirement date. Okay, so it kind of moves us into retirement eligibility and allowance calculations. So this is kind of the kind of main reason why a lot of people join us for webinars or seminars, as they really want to know how they can actually retire. How do you become eligible to retire? So starting off with the normal service retirement, there's a couple of different ways for you to be eligible to use this um, this way of retirement. So starting with retirement requirements for full allowance. So you have to be age 55 or older with at least 30 years of city service. So that's the first one. Or age 60 or older with at least 10 years of continuous service, or age 70 or older. Doesn't matter how much service time you have. The little footnote at the bottom says at least 5 years of continuous service must come from city employment and or service recognized under full reciprocity. So it kind of gives you another reason why reciprocity is kind of important as well, because you could actually use a service time for reciprocity, and also become eligible for retirement. So to give you an example of what I mean by that, if I wanted to retire using the normal service retirement, and I have established reciprocity with Orange County, or sorry, yeah, with LA and Orange County, um, the way that would work is I worked 11 years in Orange County. Okay, so once I hit my age 55 requirement just of age, if I wanted to retire using the normal service retirement with 30 years of service, I would basically just have to work 19 years with the city of LA, because 11 from Orange County, the 19 in LA gives me the 30. As long as I'm age 55, I'm eligible to retire from the service retirement. And that's kind of just another perk, reciprocity, and how that works, the service time. Um, and so this is the normal service retirement itself. And again, the second one where it talks about age 60 or older with at least 10 years of continuous service. Again, continuous service basically means that your line, no gaps greater than 3 years, is considered to be a continuous service. Okay, so that moves us to early service retirement. Now, early service retirement is the other option. In order for you to qualify for this, you have to be age 55 or older with at least 10 years of continuous service, kind of similar to the previous one, or younger than age 55 with at least 30 years of city service. Now, I'll read the two footnotes. Again, similar to the first one, similar to the normal service retirement, at least 5 years of continuous service must come from city employment and or service recognized under full reciprocity. And the second one, which I really want to point out, says no help subsidy until age 55. And I kind of want to make a point of that, because I recently, or a couple months ago now, I ran into a young lady that at Lawa that basically was hired right out of high school. So I think she was 19 years old when she was hired. So she at age 49, 50 is going to have 30 years of service. So per the requirement for early service retirement, she would be able to retire. But as the footnote at the bottom says, that she would not be entitled to HUB subsidy until age 55. So one of the things I mentioned earlier in the presentation is that this presentation is divided into two sides. There's the service retirement or the pension side, and then there's the health retirement side. When you go through the retirement process itself, you think of retirement as one thing, but there's actually two sides, the pension side and the health benefit side. The closer you get to retirement, you want to make sure what you want to retire with and what are the eligibility rules, right? Health subsidy, as I mentioned, Sandra is going to review it in the second half of this presentation. She'll kind of go into details, but just be aware that you might have 30 years of service, but if you're not 55, you might not get the health subsidy, and that's kind of a big deal, especially if you want to have health help with your health premiums in retirement. So just a heads up on there. Okay, so once you've decided on which way you're looking to go with either being a normal or early service retirement, we're going to basically figure out how to calculate your allowance. And there's three factors that we use to calculate your retirement allowance. First is your final compensation. So as a tier one member, we're gonna take your 12 months of highest salary. Typically, hopefully, it's going to be the last 12 months of your career because that means progressively throughout your career you've gotten, you've made more money. And we're going to find out what your final comp is. Second is total service credit. So every single hour you've worked of regular time, it will be included in that calculation. Um, Tier one members kind of have it a little bit easier in that your retirement factor is 2.16%. So it doesn't matter if you decide to go with a normal service retirement or an early service retirement, you are earning 2.16% for each year's service. Okay. Now, if you decide to go with the early retirement option, there's a potential of a early retirement deduction factor for your age, and there's a slide coming up that'll give you more details on that or more information on that. But basically, if you're younger than age 55, there will be a fourth factor applied in the calculation of retirement allowance. And to kind of better understand the final comp, I mentioned this since you're a tier one member, we're going to use the monthly average of the highest 12 months of compensation earned by your classification. As I said, hopefully it's the last 12 months of your career because you progressively made more money throughout your career. But just a heads up to you, that's not the case. I have, helped retired people in the past that, for whatever reason, 2, 3 years prior to them actually retiring, they took a demotion. The person that kind of stands in my head took a demotion because of health reasons. So when the person retired, we didn't use her 12 months of the last 12 months of her career because she was making less money. We actually used the last 12 months of her when she was in admin because it gave her higher benefit. Basically, what we're going to do for everybody. But what is included in that 12-month window? Well, your base salary is included in that, and any most regularly assigned bonuses in premium pay. Okay, what is not included in there is overtime. No daily or non-regularly assigned bonuses, no reimbursements, no allowances for car or uniform, no payments in lieu of benefits, and acting pay. A very common question that I do get in a lot of events that I know that I speak at is people always give me a scenario that I took a position, an emergency position for X amount of time. The question I always ask them, did your base salary change or did they add acting pay to that? If they added acting pay to that, as it says here, it would not be included in the calculation. But if your base pay increased for that allotment of time, then yes, it would be included in the calculation because basically that became your new pay rate. You were getting compensated for, actually doing that position for X amount of time. So it would be considered in the calculation or, yeah, in the calculation of your final compensation. So once we figure your final compensation, once you figure your total service credit and your retirement factor of 2.16%, we would then calculate your retirement allowance. If you go with the early retirement factor, then we would apply that fourth factor in there, and that gives you your retirement allowance. And here is just a table of percentages. So if you decide to go with the early retirement factor, here are the factors that we will be apply. I'm sorry, here are the percentages that we apply as the fourth factor applied. So if you decide to go and retire at age 51, so I gave you the example of a young lady from Lawa, 30 years of service. So let's say that she decides to retire at age 51. So she'll have 32 years of service or whatever. And let's say that if you just to use simple math, that we calculate that the final average salary is $1,000. Well, once we applied the fourth factor, she would only be entitled to 80% of that. So $1,000 becomes $805 per month, if using simple numbers. And here's a comparison of the normal service retirement versus the early service retirement. And even though we have two members side by side, same final comp, same service credit, they're both tier one. The thing I do want to point out is that the normal retiring person is 10 years older than the person that's doing an early service retirement. And then obviously you see the overall calculation there that the normal service retirement member is going to earn $1,968.30 per month. And the early stage retirement, 2 years younger, is only going to get a portion of that or a percentage of that, which will be $1,820.68. So kind of you see how the two variations works depending on if you're going with a normal service retirement versus a early service retirement. And again, it's just a matter of where you find yourself, at the time of retirement, or if you're able to retire at that time. And if the compensation is sufficient, you move forward. If it's not, might have to work a few more years. As I mentioned earlier, tier ones earn 2.16% for each year. So here gives you an idea that if you work for 30 years as a tier one member, you'll basically are at 64.8% of your final compensation because every year that you are working, you're earning 2.16%. All right. The reason that's important is that, sorry, the reason that's important is that, if you're going to work for 30 years of service, you're going to know that you'll be at 64.8%. So as I mentioned earlier, people ask me, does it really matter if you work another year? Well, if you work another year, you're adding another 2.16% to that 64.8%. So it's always going to be important. Now, if you want to do it, if you're able to do it, great. If you don't want to do it, then at that point, you have to assess if it's worth your while to move forward with retirement. Ways to increase your allowance. Well, pretty much three different ways is your timing of retirement. Are you going to go with the normal versus the early? You saw the example there, kind of the differences in the pay itself. The more service credit you have, it's going to increase your retirement allowance. And obviously, the more money you make, the more compensation you make, the more it's going to be used to calculate your benefit, the higher the amount's going to be on a monthly basis in retirement. So going back to the My Lacers account, a very helpful tool that you could find in your profile is the benefit estimate. And the benefit estimate, a feature, is something that I play with. I have many, many years before I'm eligible to retire, but I dared to dream one day of retiring. And this is a very helpful tool, especially for those who are thinking of retirement or have a targeted date. Because what it does, it actually helps you play with what potentially you'll be receiving on a monthly basis, depending on the time frame you're looking for. In some cases, well, let me take a step back. When you use this feature, it's important to note that it is tied in with our system, so it's direct information from our data management system. It usually a pay period behind, so it's not going to be exact to date on that, but just be aware of that. But what it does, as I said, it gives you an idea of what potentially you would get. Now, for myself, who has a very long time to retire, if I were to play with um, this feature, which I do, I would pay a retirement date 10 years from now, for example. Well, the amount of money that I'm currently making right now most likely is not going to be the same in 10 years. I really hope it's not. I hope it's going to be much more. But the key thing when using this feature or this option is that percentage. What it does give you is a percentage of where you're going to be. All right. Because the salary is going to fluctuate, but the percentage that you're going to be at is going to be different. All right. That's going to be more exact. So if you're ever wondering where you potentially might be, excuse me, in at the where you might be 10 years from now, this benefit calculator will give you an idea at the percentage you'll be at. It might not give you the correct number because it's not going to assume your next step increase, for example, but it's going to give you the percentage you're going to be at because it's going to take your service credit and where you're going to be at that time. But this is a very helpful tool. Like I said, I play with it all the time. Disability retirement. Just be aware that there is a disability retirement. I really hope that nobody has to actually go with this, but if you ever do need information out there, you definitely want to talk to one of our specialists. In order for you to be eligible, you have to have 5 or more years of continuous service. Typically, if you do qualify for a disability retirement, a third of your final compensation is typically what's paid. The disabling condition does not have to be job related, but it does mean that it's preventing you from doing your regular duties. And the filing period is within 1 year of your last day of active payroll. If you do not apply in time, you lose your eligibility for this benefit. And then a little footnote at the bottom. If you have more than 15.4 years of service credit and are eligible for normal service retirement allowance, it may be larger than the disability retirement allowance. So typically, if you meet that 15.4 years of service credit and are eligible for an over service retirement, we would kind of guide you that way because it'll give you a higher benefit than the disability retirement. But I really hope that nobody has to deal with that because that means that obviously has something has happened, but just be aware that this is an option and we are here to help you and help answer any questions you might have. So if you do are considering disability retirement, we strongly recommend you reach out to us as soon as possible. So your retirement contributions. So at the beginning of the presentation, I explained that there's three types of money that go into that makes up the Glacier's Pension Trust Fund. Okay. Now here it gives you an idea of a member who has gone ahead and retired. So we have Angelina. Angelina retired at age 60, worked for 26 years, so has 26 years of service credit. Total contributions was $100,000, and her salary was $75,000. As you can see here by this table, this chart. It has the rows of different money. So that teal color is the city contributions, that pink or salmon color is the employee contributions, and that Dodger blue or dark navy is the Lacer's investment returns. So when Angela retired at age 60, on a monthly basis, she's receiving her retirement allowance. Well, that retirement allowance is composed of portions of the city employee and Lacer's investment return. At age 75, so 15 years later, her contributions and interest that earned has that balance has been depleted. So the question I would pose to you all is at age 75, does that mean that Angelina's benefit calculation will be reduced because her employee contributions have been used up? Well, the answer is no. All that means is that there's going to be more city contributions and Lacer's investment returns used to make Angelina whole and continue on to receive a monthly benefit until she passes on. Okay. So kind of the reasons that I kind of tell you to remember that the pension trust fund, there's three types of money. And this is kind of one of the reasons why, because again, once you go on your career, you become eligible to retire and do retire, you are earning a lifetime benefit. So moving on to your retirement selection options. So as you go through the retirement process, you are going to have to make a lot of choices, a lot of options you're going to have to make as you go through the retirement process. And one of the things you're going to have to choose is what's going to happen to any unused contributions if you were to pass away. Um, I do want to kind of set up this scenario in that you, the member, have gone on and gone through the retirement process, are already enjoying a benefit, spouses enjoying a benefit, and now you both have passed away and there's still contribution amount. Okay. So the first option is cash refund. So when you decide to go with a cash refund, that means that you've gone on and retired. We calculate your benefit, you start receiving your monthly benefit. You've passed away in retirement. Your spouse or domestic partner is now receiving the survivor benefit. They now have gone on and passed away as well. All right. When they've passed away, there's still a balance of contributions. All right. What's going to happen to that money? Well, if you've gone with the cash refund, whoever is listed as the beneficiary at the time of your spouse or domestic partner passing away, they would receive whatever balance is still there. The second option is life annuity. So as you go to the retirement process and decide to go with the life annuity, we're going to calculate your retirement benefit as we did for the cash refund, but we're also going to calculate a life annuity that's going to take the potential contributions there and give you a bump. What that bump is, we don't know. It's a case by case scenario, and it's something that will be provided to you once when you go through the retirement process itself. All right, so it's not like you're gonna make a blind a decision on that amount. You'll know that amount is, but you'll have your retirement benefit plus that additional bump. Now we actually go through that scenario. You've gone and retired. You start receiving your monthly benefit. You have passed away. Your spouse or domestic partner starts receiving a survivor benefit, and at some point they pass away, and there's still a balance of contributions. Well, that contributions would go back to the plan because at the beginning of your retirement, you decided to take an additional bump as a life annuity. So there's no money there to be given to whoever is the beneficiary at the time of not only your passing, but your spouse or domestic partner is passing away as well. And then the key thing is that once you select one of these options, it's irrevocable. All right. So once you retire, your date has passed, it's kind of edged in stone. So that moves us on to continuance benefit. A continuance benefit is a lifetime monthly benefit provided to a qualifying beneficiary as a result of a death of a retired member. Um, you might or might not know that part of the contributions that we're already paying, for the survivor contributions. So a portion of your retirement contributions is set aside to provide a 50% lifetime monthly continuous benefit to any eligible spouse or domestic partner. You are able to provide a larger contribution if you wish. All right. But what happens is, let's say instead of 50%, you wanted to leave 75%. Well, in order for that to happen, we would have to do an actuary calculation to see how much your amount has to come down to compensate for the spouse's or domestic partner survivor benefit going up. So this slide talks about who is an eligible spouse or domestic partner and the requirements they have to meet. And I do want to preface this that this slide is not an or, it's an and. So they must meet all three in order for the spouse or domestic partner to be eligible for that survivor benefit. So with all three of them, you have to be legally married or in a LACERS or state registered domestic partnership at least 1 year before retiring, during retirement, and at the time of your passing. All right. So if were to get married 3 months before your retirement, right there, that person would not be eligible because they have to have at least 1 year of retirement. If you get married in retire as a retiree, that person didn't meet the first two, so they would not be eligible for survivor benefits. All right. So just it's very important that they have to meet all three requirements to be eligible for that lifetime survivor benefit. And then little footnote at the bottom, domestic partnership must be filled with LACERS or state register form. So hopefully all four of them, all either form would be completed and provided to LACERS. I'm gonna take a quick pause here. Senator, did you want me?
No, you have about 8 minutes before Latanya comes on.
Okay, thank you. I just saw a thing pop up on my screen, so I figured to ask. Okay, so with that, we'll keep going then. So I talked about, members with spouses and domestic partnership, but what about my single members? Well, don't worry, we didn't forget about you. Basically, similarly to your coworkers who are married or a domestic partnership, you're going to have the same option, either to go with a cash out or in this case be a lump sum payment. What that means is that you would take a one-time lump sum cash payment for your survivor contributions. Obviously you would take that as a lump sum, as it says there. Two, you could do a higher allowance. So again, we would do an actual calculation. You would get an increased bump in addition to your retirement benefit. Or the third one is you could actually leave, someone a benefit. So not my case, for example, I being single, um, let's say I wanted to leave money to my daughter, for example. Well, I could do so. So I would actually, have her listed as my beneficiary. I want her to receive 50%, almost like, my spouse or a domestic partner would receive it. What happens is a calculation is actually done as an actuary reduction. I'm sorry, a actual calculation is done because the fact of the matter is that I am at least 20 years older than my daughter. So there's a potential of my daughter receiving survivor benefits for quite a longer time that either a spouse or domestic partnership would have. So in order for the compensate for that, my benefit allowance was reduced to compensate for that. Now, anytime you decide to do any kind of additional contributions, or in this case, elect a continuance for a child or significant other, or just whoever you want to as a single member, um, those amounts would be given to you as you go through the retirement process. So it's not like it's a blind number. We don't know what those numbers are. We technically don't know those numbers are right now because we haven't got to the process. But once you go through the retirement process, you'll be aware of what these numbers are if this is something that you want to go forward with. So continuance elections. So if an individual you designate for continuance dies before you, so this is a very important thing to note. So I use myself as an example because remember, once you make this decision, either as a married a member or as a single member, once you make these options and you go and retire, they're irrevocable. So I use myself as an example that, if I wanted to leave money to my child, for example, as a continuance, I would basically my amount would be reduced. But what happens if she were to pass away before I do? Well, fact of the matter that I've named her, I've gone and retired. I could never replace her. I mean, literally, physically, and on this and as a survivor benefit as well. So you cannot name a new person to receive any. My continuous payment, which would that my continuous the continuous payment is not paid because there's nobody to receive that money. And even though my compensation of my benefit was reduced to compensate the benefit there, it's not going to go back up because the calculation has already been done. So it's just something to keep in mind if you are a single member thinking about leaving money, kind of scenario I kind of posed out there. If you want to leave money for a child, God forbid something were to happen to that child before you've retired or you've passed away, excuse me. And that moves us on to taxes, COLAs, and Social Security. So a very common question that I used to get all the time, or kind of still do, is that people will always ask me, "Hey, I the taxes that we pay on here, is it going to matter, if we move to a different state? Do we have to pay California state?" Well, for state and federal taxes, that's something that you're going to have to be aware about. you know, you being in California, if you decide to retire in California, you're going to have to pay state, taxes for California. But a lot of members decide to leave California and decide to retire some in a different state. If this applies to anybody out there, here is a link to retirementliving.com, and it gives you a breakdown for taxes by state because you will need to be aware of the state taxes you're going to have to pay in that state that you are residing. For federal taxes, you're always going to pay federal taxes. It doesn't matter what state you decide to live in, you're going to pay taxes from all the pension, or you have 401k plans, Social Security benefits, it's all going to be part of it. For those members who are thinking of living outside the country, obviously no state tax would be applied, but again, federal taxes will still be applied, because you always got to pay federal taxes. It's just the states one that does vary. Costing adjustment or COLA. Well, the heads up to you in case you didn't know, it's based on the Consumer Price Index or CPI for the Los Angeles area. And for tier ones, it may increase your retirement allowance a maximum of 3% per year. The CPI, so if anytime the CPI is greater than 3%, 3% being the maximum, the whatever it goes over that 3% is considered, it will be banked for future years. And what that means is, here's an example of what I'm talking about. Here it gives you a breakdown of kind of previous few years, and the CPI amount, the COLA was approved, 3% that was applied, and what was banked and to be used for future reference. So just looking at the top screen there, it says July 1st of 2023, the CPI was 7.4%. So the COLA approved was 7.4%. As I mentioned, the maximum you can get is 3%. So 4.4% was actually banked. So let's say that for July 1st of 2024, let's say that the CPI was only 1%. Well, 1% would be applied, but since you have that 4.4 kind of sitting in the bank, you would take two out of that and apply it to the maximum of COLA, so that next year anybody who's retired and receiving the COLA would get 3% and still have that 2.4% banked for to be used in upcoming years where the max CPI is under 3%. And that's kind of the way that this works. So the whole thing is to kind of help you, deal with. Hopefully, this kind of works as I call it as a raise a little bit, every year. Hopefully, there's a 3% maximum that's applied, and just to review, if there's everything over 3%, the access is banked for future use. The common question that I get when talking about Social Security, um, is that people always ask me, "Hey, I'm receiving Social Security. Is Social Security going to affect my pension?" The answer is always no. Um, but your pension before would be able to affect your Social Security, and there's two ways they would impact it. First, it was the windfall elimination provision, which impact you, the member, and then the government pension offset, which impact your surviving spouse. However, at the beginning of the year, um, previous presidents signed that the kind of rescinding these two items. So when it comes to the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset, we're still kind of waiting on Social Security Administration to kind of figure out how they're going to roll this out, how they're going to process this. So anybody that's thinking about retiring anytime soon, we strongly, or is receiving Social Security, I would always refer to them to go to the website for Social Security straight. to them. So you want to go to the horse's mouth, if, as I say, um, because we here at Lacers do not provide any information of Social Security. We're not the experts when it comes to that, and expect especially something as big as this decision with the windfall and the government pension offsets. So kind of being in limbo. To well, the good thing is that they've been rescinded, so it means that we won't be impacted by that. But moving forward, what does that mean? Still kind of waiting to find out how Social Security admin is going to go forward with that. So that's kind of where we're at. If you do have questions, go straight to them, to their website. So that moves us up to supplementing your Lexus allowance. Kind of one of the things that a previous slide talked about was basically the percentage. So it gave you the example of a person working 30 years, it would be approximately at 65% of your pay. One of the things that you should consider your Lexus pension should be the foundation of your retirement financial planning, but it may or may not, cover all of your expenses in retirement. So one of the things that we do advise is to kind of keep it in perspective, in regards to your, current take-home pay to what projected take-home pay in retirement, is going to be. And here's an example of a, pretty a common pay stub that everybody sees, and it kind of gives you a breakdown of just an active employee kind of looking at their pay stub and what is currently coming out, for taxes and retirement, opposed to in, also, for union dues and parking and whatnot. Once you stop working, and you decide to retire, everything that you're kind of had coming out of your paycheck kind of ceases and stops. What comes out of it is basically up to you, your taxes, health insurance, and whatnot. But everything that you have paying, your contributions, your health benefits, your, parking in this case, union dues, that kind of all stops. Um, but the thing that you should consider, and kind of going back to that 30-year, service credit person, if your final comp is going to be at 64.8% or 65%, that would be considered your take-home pay before any taxes are paid, before any health insurance is paid off. If you compare that to your take-home pay for most current active employees being 82%, you see that there's a clear gap of pay there. So you definitely need to ask yourself, okay, how can I reduce that gap? Now, we had Latanya just talked about deferred comp, which is, a way to kind of put money, into another pension and to have yet another source of income. But here at Lacers, we actually have another program that's not the same scale as the deferred comp, but it gives you yet another option. So Lacers offers the larger annuity program, and like the deferred comp, is completely optional. You decide how to invest, you decide how to contribute. The contributions can be either in a lump sum contribution or make a weekly contribution like you kind of do now with deferred comp or your pension now. If you have another qualified plan somewhere else, you could do rollover of assets. Once you have that money or decide to participate, you also decide how to invest. You invest either going with the average treasury, 5-year treasury note, which is a little bit conservative, or you want to be, a little bit more aggressive and use the Laser's rate of return for publicly traded, Laser's investment portfolio. But at the time of retirement, you decide if you want to turn this into a lifetime monthly annuity to your pension or take it as a lump sum. If this is something that you would be interested in or might consider or already participated and need to make changes, you can definitely find the forms on our website, lasers.org, under the forms section. And in order for you to can start it, you complete the large annuity initiation, or if you want to change the amount, you just change the amount, the contribution amount on that form. I'm going to skip over the deferred comp because Latanya has already spoken. Again, deferred comp is yet another option for you to put money aside and yet have another source of income along with your pension. The website's there. Hopefully, everybody wrote down Latanya's information before she left us. And that brings us to when you're ready to retire. So, part of the reason you're here is because, which is great, is that you're getting ready. You're trying to get as much information as possible. You're basically putting a game plan together. But we always tell people that part of the game plan of your retirement is not only getting to retirement and going through the process, but what is the next step? What is in retirement? You definitely want to give yourself the reward of retirement because it is the reward for a lifetime of hard work. You definitely would have the freedom to do more of what you've always wanted to do. But we kind of have three, phases of retirement that, when you first decide to retire, you basically have, people used to call it a bucket list. We kind of call it a live it list because there's stuff that you've always wanted to do and now you have the time to do it. You want to go on and live and do it. So what we call the go-go years. kind of once you start making your way through that list, you kind of start selling in into your, selling in years as you go into the latter part of your caregiving years. Hopefully selling years, you're spending a lot more time with family. I joke that my that's where my parents are currently out right now, and my brother just had their first daughter, so not, their settling years also including doing babysitting for my brother. So there you go with that. But kind of, you definitely want to have a game plan as you go into retirement as well. You know, basically what this slide says right here, you want to retire to something opposed to away from something, excuse me, you want to have, hobbies going into retirement. It's not that you're trying to get away from something, but you want to actually go towards something, as you go through retirement itself. And just the retirement lifestyle changes that do occur, once you stop working, you basically have, you know, don't have that structure of time anymore. You don't have the, the if you will, force relationships that you might have with coworkers, in the sense that you're in a shared space and whatnot, kind of ways to replace that would be perhaps to join a club or volunteer somewhere else. One of the positive things that came out of COVID is that so much stuff is available online, so many courses you could take. Excuse me. You could participate in links as well, which we'll talk about later on. But the one thing you want to do is you definitely want to maintain and cultivate friendships. I'm sure that there's people that you talk to at work right now that you hopefully want to continue those relationships. Going into the retirement process. So when you're ready to retire, when you decide to retire, the way you submit your application is by using the retirement application portal or the RAP. And this is the easy way to upload your application. This is where you're going to upload and submit your required docs. It's completely secure. You do an electronic signature, and the best part about it is that once you submit your application and your documentation, you can kind of follow the process or the application status, and that's all from the comfort of your home. Now, some of the steps to keep in mind as you get ready to retire or start to access the wrap, 90 days prior to your anticipated retirement date, you definitely want to notify us of your intent to retire. Basically, the easiest way for you to do is to go to the Lacers website. That is where you're going to actually, register and schedule an appointment. You could do either a one-on-one in person one, or you could do a virtual one. The virtual ones are super popular because you can do it from the comfort in your home, and it's kind of a quicker process itself. Two, you also want to gather your required docs. You want to scan them and save them to your computer for easy upload. Um, what those documents are, we'll talk about in the upcoming slide. Three, there is a Lacers decision sheet that you can find on the lacers.org under the forms and info sheets. And this kind of works almost as a checklist of kind of as you go through the retirement process, what are some of the things that you need in regards to like documents, for example. And then it also kind of keeps you in line, like, when it talks about do I want to go with the cash or do I like or the annuity, kind of helps you decide and kind of keep everything in order. And then lastly, you want to review retirement application portal, the FAQs. The FAQs kind of has a list of the most common questions, obviously, or frequently asked questions, but it's very helpful. One of the things that we try to do with the FAQs is try to provide as much information as it can, because I guarantee you're not the first person asking that question that you have in your head. Always recommend that you go on that because it's tons of information. And if you still have questions, we're here to help you out. And only after completing these steps, you should access the wrap itself. So one of the most important things you're going to do, I think, in the retirement process, to be honest, is actually selecting your retirement date. So your application must be submitted within the appropriate filing period, which is 30 to 60 days prior to your selected retirement date. That's when the application can be submitted. Your last day on payroll will be the day before your retirement date. So your retirement cannot be the last day of you being on payroll. It's typically the next day. If you want your last active check to be a full check, retire at the end of the pay period. To shorten the time between your last active check and your first retirement check, retire in the last pay period of the month. That's just kind of helpful, friendly advice. And then when it comes to the required documents, if you're married or the state registered document, the domestic partnership, we're going to need a copy of that. We obviously need the original, and then I think I mentioned earlier you would need either the Lacers portion or the actual state registered form. For every member, we would need either a birth certificate or a current passport for yourself and your spouse or domestic partner. If you've gone through any divorce, any dissolution of of marriage, we would need a copy of that, the final copy of the I'm sorry, a copy of the final documents of that dissolution of marriage. Um, Mainly because we need to see if there's any court orders, any drows or quadras that might be applied to the calculation of your benefit. Medicare card, if applicable, and a state and federal issue photo identification for yourself or domestic partner has to provide these documents as well. And then the little footnote at the bottom, Lacers will also require a W-9 form and an affidavit of identity form to be completed. It's important to note that failure to upload these documents will prevent you from submitting your application through the RAP and therefore delay your retirement date. Again, that said, you can always reach out to us. And as I said, you can set appointments through our website, either in person or virtual. When it comes to the requirement documentation, just a couple of things to keep in mind. That documents will be required for yourself and your spouse or domestic partner. But if there's any name discrepancies on documents, if you go by a nickname, for example, the city allowed to go by a nickname, but if your name is John, for example, and you go by Jack in your documents you provide says, John, we're going to ask you, well, wait a minute, who's Jack? Things like that need to be kind of, need to be straightforward. As I mentioned, if you're going through a divorce that needs to be finalized, you will be considered, married unless your divorce is finalized prior to retirement date. That's very important to note. And then if you have any documents in foreign language, it must be translated or transcribed by a certified translator. Notarized copies are not acceptable. All right. So if you are a person that has documentation in a foreign language other than Spanish, because Spanish we do that in house. Um, that I think that's the only one I think that we'd be okay with. But if you have a document that is in a foreign language, it needs to be translated or transcribed. And as a person that has kind of worked with these cases in my career, transcribing of foreign documents takes a while. So you definitely want to make sure that you have these documentations done before you start the retirement process. Specialized counseling's available. So, we talked about the all the different ways you're eligible to retire. We talked about disability retirement. If something were to happen to you and you have to leave employment either because of health reasons or just a bad situation you might be in, we are here to help you, guide you through the process as best as possible. If there's a need for you to take out your money or retire you as quickly as possible, kind of guide you through that process. We are here to help you. As I mentioned before, you can set an appointment either in person or online. But you're always welcome to give us a call, shoot us an email. There's different people you could reach out to depending on the needs that you have. But just be aware that we're here to help you. So if there's any questions you have, concerns, or just need any kind of special counseling, we can guide you through that process. And with that, it brings me to the end of the first half of this presentation. So we'll stop sharing.
Thank you guys for sticking with us. Carlos, thank you for your great information. I know that I stand in between you guys and lunch, so I want to get you guys going in the right direction. I've got three things I want to share with you. We were going to talk about leaving city service, survivor benefits, and medical. So let's get going. Remember, if you have questions, to go ahead and put your questions in our Q&A. Someone will be able to assist you there if you have any questions about this, or you can save your questions until the end of the presentation, and I'll be glad to answer them there. So if you are considering transferring or promoting to DWP, great. They're a part of our city family. They do have a different retirement program. They have different tiers over there, and we don't coordinate with them at all together at all. So if you have questions about transferring to DWP, you want to give them a call because they are different than the city of Los Angeles. Your funds will stay here into the city of Los Angeles until you divest from both DWP and the city of Los Angeles. So if you're planning to transfer or promote over there, we don't have any calculators or any opinions or suggestions as to what is the best move. So you're going to have to figure that out on your own. And you're going to give them a call or go to their website, retire@ladwp.com, or you can call them at the phone number listed here and ask them about their plan, because their plan is different than our plan. So if you leave city service and you have less than 5 years, you have a couple of options. Option one is to leave your contributions on plan with the city until you get to that required minimum distribution age of 73. Or you can take a refund of your contributions or roll them over into another qualified retirement plan. And I'll go in a couple of slides and talk to you about what the refund could look like, along with penalties and taxes. So if you're considering leaving city service and you have more than 5 years of continuous service, you do have a couple of options there as well. You can always take a refund or roll your funds over into a qualified plan, or you can leave your contributions on deposit with Lacers and then come back and get a deferred service retirement when you're eligible to retire. And we'll talk about eligibility in a couple of slides. So if you're doing a refund of contributions at early withdrawal is under age 55, and it'll look something like a 65% refund because you're going to get federal taxes of 20%, state taxes of 2%. You're going to get a federal penalty of 10% and a state penalty of 3%. So that's what you're looking at if you decide to take a refund of contributions. If you are over 55 when you take your refund of contributions, you will get a 78% refund, and you'll just be taxed for the federal tax and the state taxes. There will be no penalty for your contributions. So when we talk about deferred normal retirement, your eligibility for a full allowance is age 55 and you have 30 years of service, age 60 and you have 10 years of service, or age 70 and have 5 or more years of continuous service. That means that if you are now age 55 and you're 30, you have 30 years of service, and you decide, okay, I just want to leave. I got a new job over at the county, then stay here, or you got a new job over in the private sector and you just want to leave your funds here and you want to come back and get your money later, you can do that. And you can take a deferred normal retirement. We also have the option of a deferred early retirement. It'll be a reduced allowance. So if you are age 55 and your first date of membership was at least 10 years prior, and you have at least 5 years of continuous service, you can take a deferred early retirement. I know some people that are age 55 and they have 10 years of service with the city, then they go on to work somewhere else, and then they can begin to draw their deferred early retirement because they're eligible. So they can get their retirement at that time. But at least 5 years of the continuous service must come from the city or a service recognized under full reciprocity. And Carlos talked to you about reciprocity and how that works in our earlier slides. So let's talk about survivor benefits while you are active and while you are retired. So if you are an active member and you die while working with the city, your benefits will be for your survivors will depend on your years of service, your service credit, your age, the survivor's relationship to you, and your designation of beneficiaries. Please make sure you keep your designation of beneficiaries current, because if you started with the city 30 years ago and that information has changed, we want to make sure that we're paying the people that you want us to pay. So keep your beneficiaries up to date. So if you are retired and you want to know what happens to your benefits after that, once you're retired, you may be eligible for a continuance benefit. That means your spouse or designated partner can continue those benefits. Your health benefits will go to your eligible survivor. Any unused contributions, Carlos so greatly shared with us what happens with unused contributions. For this, for the retirement benefit, we also have what's called a $2,500 burial allowance. So that's $2,500 that will be given to your beneficiary upon your death and the receipt of a death certificate. Also, the accrued amount of your retirement allowance for the month of your death. So let's say, for example, you die on the 15th of the month and we owe you from the 1st to the 15th, then that money obviously can't go to you because you have passed away, and it'll go to your beneficiary that you have selected. So that's just a partial benefit for the month of your death, and that's for retired members. So the survivor benefit options for active members. So if you are an active member and you pass away, your survivor has options. They can take a refund of your contributions. They can do a limited pension, or they can do what's called a survivorship. That means that your spouse will be eligible to receive the contribution, your retirement benefits, and they will be calculated as if you retired at 100%. So if you are, say, 50 years old and you're not going to be eligible to retire until you're 55, your survivor can wait until you're age 50, till you would have been age 55, and go ahead and collect your benefit at 100% continuance. So survivor benefit options, if you have less than 1 year of service, that means that they can take a refund of your contributions. If you have less than 1 year, but if you have at least 1 year, but less than 5 years, they can do a refund of contribution and a possible limited pension. If they have less than 5 years of continuous service, you could potentially get a disability retirement or survivorship or a refund of contributions. If you have 5 or more years of continuous service, your survivor could get a deferred or service retirement survivorship, a disability retired survivorship, or refund of contributions or limited pension, depending on the circumstances. So keep that in mind while you're an active member. If you have a domestic partner currently, if they are on your health care plan while you are actively employed, and you want to carry them over as your domestic partner in LACERS, please make sure you fill out our Declaration of Domestic Partnership form. This form can be found on our website at lacers.org. It's a very simple form. You're going to include your name, that person's name, executed on the day, and both of you will sign it. You must have this form so that this person can, number one, get your continuance, number two, get your health care in retirement. So we're going to need you to fill out that form, or you can use a registered state of California domestic partnership form. But we must have that form. A lot of people get confused. They say, oh, I've been carrying them on, they've been on my health care while I was working. So why can't you carry them here while I'm retired? Well, we can, but we're gonna need the form. We talked about beneficiaries before. The city is so wonderful. We have a lot of benefits with the city. And in having all of those benefits, we have to have beneficiaries. So for every benefit, you have a beneficiary. You have your life insurance with the city, you have your disability insurance with the city, and you also have your LACERS plan. You also have your deferred comp. So make sure that all of your beneficiaries are up to date. If you do not choose a beneficiary or they predecease you, we'll have to pay in order of succession. And succession is, we'll start with your spouse, then we'll go to your children, then we'll go to your parents, and then we'll go to your estate. So just make sure that you keep your beneficiary forms up to date, and the names and addresses and telephone numbers, so that your wishes can be carried through to if something should happen to you. So LACERS also offers the Family Death Benefit Plan. That is a voluntary program that we offer for active members who have young families or have dependent parents. So if something should happen to you while you are an active member, this family death benefit plan pays about $900 per kid. So you want to make sure that if you're an active member and your kid needs support, they're going to be without you. At least you can give them that $900 to help them out until they are of, I think, college age or age 16 or out of high school. But the actual form is on our website. I think it's about 95 cents every pay period, a small amount to pay for the knowledge that you have covered your child, your small child. So you should also cancel that if you are in the family death benefit plan and your kid is out of age to receive the benefit. We don't know. We don't ask the age of the child. We just cover your child and then they present if something should happen. But if your child is 35 years old and they no longer have an opportunity to benefit from this program and you're still taking the 95 cents out every pay period, please cancel it. And you just want to go to our website. You can get information from the information sheet. If you go to lacers.org, family-death-benefit-plan, you will see number one, the FDBP information sheet, and that will tell you how much you would get and how much each child would get should something happen to you. You would also be able to find the election to participate in the plan, as well as if you need to cancel the plan, you can find all that information there. You have to join the plan. You have to pay for the plan for at least 18 months before it actually goes into effect. So make sure that if you decide now that you want to join the plan, you can. And if you've been with the city for 18 months or more, then you could go ahead and buy that back. And you can talk to our buyback representatives for that. So let's now go into the medical and dental benefits. Now, medical is a big deal nowadays. It's very expensive, and we want to make sure that we're covered. I know that a lot of pension plans do not cover medical, so we're very lucky to work for the city and that they do cover medical. This is the health benefits guide. As you can see, it is titled the 2025 Health Benefits Guide because health benefits change every year. So next year, it's going to be the 2026 Health Benefits Guide. So this is basically your user manual. It tells you who's covered, how much it costs, what's covered, and you want to use this to help determine what plan you're going to go into when you retire. So this book, you can get a hard copy, but we have a soft copy posted on our lacers.org page. If you go to our website and lacers.org Health Benefits Guide, you can find it there and you can take a look at it and maybe you can peruse it to see, hey, what plan might I get when I retire? So medical and dental enrollment eligibility. Who is eligible? You are. You are eligible. You're eligible dependents and any eligible survivor who receives a continuance or survivorship allowance. So that's your legal spouse or domestic partner, your dependent children under age 26. If you have a disabled child with a disability that occurred prior to age 26, or if you have a grandchild under age 26 and the child is the legal guardian or has legal custody or is a child of a dependent child. So let's talk about health plan subsidies. Subsidies is what the city will pay toward your health care. You have to be at least 55 years old, be receiving a service or retirement disability from LACERS, having a minimum of 10 whole years of service, be enrolled in a LACERS-sponsored medical plan or participating in the medical premium reimbursement program. And we'll go over what the medical premium reimbursement program, shortcut MPRP, is later on in a couple slides. So the medical subsidy for 2025, it changes every year. And this year, the maximum subsidy is $2,318.58. The minimum amount is $927.43. So if you work for 25 years, you will get the subsidy of $2,318.58. $2,318.58. If you work for 30 years, you'll get the maximum subsidy of $2,318.58. So it doesn't matter how many more years you get. The, the thing with this is for each whole year you work, you get an additional 4%. So if you start off, if you have 10 years, you get 40% of the $2,318.58. And then if you work 11 years, you get 44%, and so on and so on. So the maximum subsidy is how much we will pay toward your insurance. So in order to get a health plan subsidy, you must be at least 55 years of age. I think we talked about this. This may be a duplicate slide, or did I go the wrong way? I probably went the wrong way. Oh, I'm pulling backspace. I need to go forward space. Okay. So dental subsidy. So we have two dental plans. We've got the Delta Dental PPO and we have the Delta Care HMO. And the subsidy works very much like the healthcare subsidy. You starts at 10 years. You have to be eligible at 55 and have a minimum of 10 whole years of service. It maxes out at 25 years. And for each plan, it has a different cap. So as you can see, for Delta Dental PPO, the maximum subsidy is $42.93. For Delta Care HMO, the maximum subsidy is $15.70. The only difference in this subsidy is that Lacers does not provide a dental subsidy to dependents or eligible survivors. They can join our plan, but they will not be subsidized. So let's understand your health plan deductions. So the monthly premium is how much the actual health care cost. The number of dependents you enroll and the health plan you choose, that makes a difference in how much you're going to pay, as well as your LACER subsidy, which is based obviously on your service credit. So let's dig into that. So as you can see, your medical plan options are pretty standard, which is what you guys are seeing while you're with the employee benefits. We have Kaiser. So when you're coming over to the retirement side, we also have Kaiser. We also have Anthem Blue Cross. So those are pretty standard. You guys know about those, but we also have a couple of other plans that you guys are not aware of that are not offered on the employee benefit side. We have senior plans because as you retire, you're going into a senior situation with Medicare. So we have Medicare plans, and we're going to talk about Medicare in a couple of slides as well. So we have the Kaiser Senior Advantage Medicare plan. We have United Healthcare Medicare Advantage, and we have Senior Care Action Network, better known as SCAN. So also for the PPO plans, we have Anthem Blue Cross PPO plan, and we have Anthem Blue Cross Life and Health plan. So these are our Medicare plans along with the normal plans that you guys see in employee benefits. Where you live matters. If you remain in California, you'll see all of the plans are offered. Oftentimes, people who are retired, they will want to move. They don't want to stay in California. The cost of living can be very expensive, or maybe they want to move closer to the grandkids who may live somewhere else. But be aware that your medical plan will change if you should move outside of California. So as you move across the country to Nevada and Arizona, you have less options. As you can see, we offer only in Nevada and Arizona United Healthcare, Anthem Blue Cross, and that's it. We don't offer Kaiser. As you can see, we offer Kaiser in California. If you go across the United States and into other countries, you only see Anthem Blue Cross PPO or Life and Health as your options for United States and worldwide. So keep that in mind when you're looking to retire. If you're thinking about moving outside of California, your medical plan options change. So your dental plans are Delta Care HMO. We talked about the two plans that we offer. They're available in California and some areas of Nevada. So keep that in mind. Delta Dental PPO is available nationwide. So if you're choosing Delta PPO, you can go to any dentists all across California, nationwide, and out of the country. So if you have Kaiser for your vision, if you have Kaiser as your healthcare plan, then Kaiser will be your vision. If you choose any other plan except for Kaiser, then your vision is Anthem Blue View Vision. That's going to be your vision plan if you choose anything outside of Kaiser. So when to enroll in your medical and dental plans? If you choose Lacer's health coverage, you will enroll as a part of the retirement process. And coverage will begin the first month after your retirement date. So for example, if you retire on the 15th of March, then your Lacer's plan will go into effect on April 1st. So what will happen is your active city employee health benefits will continue till the end of the month. And then they will send you a COBRA letter saying, hey, we're no longer covering you. But that COBRA letter won't mean a lot to you, and it won't matter because you will have already enrolled in your plan at your retirement. So keep that in mind. Lacer's health plans are available if you need them, but they're not required. If you, let's just say you're retiring from the city, but you're going to another job who's going to cover your health care and you don't want to choose your health care, that's fine. You don't have to take it at this point, but it's always there if you need them. If you do not enroll at the time of retirement, you may enroll during open enrollment or if you experience a qualifying event. And we'll talk about qualifying events in a future slide. Now, open enrollment for Lacers is October 15th through November 15th every year. So let's just say you did go to that other job and I don't really like their plan. I want to go back to my Lacers plan. Well, sure. Send us your enrollment form during that open enrollment process. So remember that enrollment in a Lacers plan is not automatic. Actually, nothing at Lacers is automatic. We need your signature for everything that you change. Whenever you change something, we need your signature. So if you are enrolling in something, don't just think, hey, I was enrolled over there in the active side. They're just automatically going to enroll me over here in Lacers. Nope, that's not going to happen. We need you to actually enroll in your plan. And you should do that within 60 days of your retirement date. If you do not enroll, like I said, you can enroll during a qualifying event. So let's talk about qualifying events. The Lacers annual enrollment, 60 days of turning age 55. So in the case of that person that Carlos told us about earlier who retired at 50 and now she doesn't, either she's paying full freight for her own insurance or maybe she's got insurance somewhere else. She can come back within 60 days of turning 55 and give us her enrollment form and she will be eligible to enroll at that time. 90 days of turning age 65. Let's just say you're turning age 65 and you want to join a supplemental plan, you should do that. 30 days of moving. If let's say you move, you decide, California's not for me, I'm going to move. So you move outside of the service. That is called a qualifying event, and we can go ahead and enroll you at that time. If you have a family status change, let's say you get married or get into a domestic partnership or birth or adopt a child, then 30 days of that, you should send us the enrollment form so that we can get that extra person covered. If you have been involuntarily terminated from a Lacers plan, a non-Lacers medical plan. So like you went to that job and you said, working's not for me. I just want to retire and sit at home and play bridge all day. That's fine. You can do that because they will have terminated you from that plan. And then you can just show us that documentation and we'll enroll you into the Lacers plan. If the Lacers HMO plan zip code service area changes or becomes unavailable, that's another time that you can change your, you can enroll, and that's considered a qualifying event. As I said, we would discuss the Medical Premium Reimbursement Plan, MPRP. It helps you pay the premiums of your chosen plan with your LACER's medical subsidy. So that $2,300 that we're going to give you, we're going to pay that directly to you so that you can pay for your plan. So the people who are eligible, they have to reside more than 3 months outside of out 3 months of the year outside of a LACER's California HMO service area or outside of the state of California, but within the United States and its territories. They have to be eligible for a medical subsidy and they are not enrolled in a LACER's plan. So what you do is you enrolled in a federally qualified or state regulated insurance plan. You pay your premiums directly to the provider for 3 months, submit proof of enrollment and payment to LACERS, and LACERS will reimburse you quarterly up to the amount of your medical subsidy. So you may also be reimbursed for vision and Medicare Part D premiums if they're not a part of the non-LACERS medical plan. So for example, let's just say you decide to move to Washington and you love Kaiser, and I've been had Kaiser all this time, and I see a Kaiser in Washington. Why can't you cover me? I want to go to Kaiser. Well, guess what? You can. You can go to Kaiser. You go to Kaiser, you enroll in their plan, you pay for it for 3 months, and then LACERS will reimburse you. So you're going to send the proof of payments to LACERS quarterly and receive the reimbursement up to the maximum health subsidy amount. So, how to enroll in the MPRP. So, enrolling at retirement, inform the LACER staff that you will be residing outside of the covered zip codes. Provide the zip code to LACERS and determine your eligibility for MPRP. And a LACERS health staff will provide you with the packet necessary to enroll in the LACERS MPRP plan, and they'll also give you a reimbursement schedule. So let's just say that you want to decide to enroll after your retirement. You want to contact a LACER staff within 30 days of your move. Provide your zip code to the LACER staff to determine your eligibility. Submit a signed change of address form to update your address so we'll know, hey, you're moving. And LACER's health staff will give you all of the necessary forms needed to go ahead and join our MPRP program. So let's talk about Medicare. What is Medicare? Medicare is a federal insurance program for people who are age 65 or older, are disabled, or have specific medical conditions. You must enroll in all parts of Medicare that you are eligible for. So Medicare A is hospitalization, Medicare B is doctor's visits, and Medicare D is a drug benefit. So keep that in mind as we look at these reimbursement schedules and all of these things for Medicare. So your subsidy amount is calculated differently once you age into Medicare. The maximum monthly subsidy will be based on your years of service. So the Medicare subsidy, because you're not in a regular plan, you're in what's called a Medicare subsidy plan. So Medicare is paying for some of your bill and LACERS is paying for some of your bill. So keep that in mind that if you have 20 plus years, 100% of the one party monthly premium is how much you will be reimbursed. 90% if you have between 15 and 19 years, and 75% if you have 10 to 14 years. So again, Medicare Part B is required. Failure to enroll in Medicare Part B will terminate your LACERS coverage. Make sure that if you are over age 65, that you are enrolled in Medicare Part B. Now, if you are still working and you are age 65, you do not have to enroll in Medicare Part B. Understand that the basic Medicare Part B premium for 2025 is $185 a month. We do not want you to pay that if you don't need to. So again, while you're working, you don't have to pay for that. But you do have to pay for that once you're retired. So we encourage our members to enroll in the Medicare Easy Pay program. So the Medicare Easy Pay program Um, you sign up and you give them your bank account and they take $185 a month out of your bank account. If that's not the route you take, then Medicare will bill you quarterly $185 a month. And that's close to 500, almost $600. Every quarter, you'll have to pay that out of pocket as opposed to the every month easy pay program. Sometimes when you're retired and you're out vacationing, skiing in Aspen, you don't want to have to worry about this quarterly thing. You want to enjoy your life. So I suggest that you do consider enrolling in the Medicare Easy Pay program because it just happens. You don't have to worry about it, and it's one less thing that you have to deal with. So Medicare Part A is required if it is free. Do not pay for Medicare Part A because you will be covered. Most people at this point are covered by Medicare Part A premium free. So make sure that you sign up for Medicare Part A if it's premium free, but you can receive Medicare Part A premium free if you have 10 years of earnings history with Social Security outside of city employment. If you started with the city after April 1st, 1986 by paying FICA Medicare payroll taxes, or through your spouse when they reach age 62 if they're eligible for Part A premium free. So keep that in mind. There's a good thing for having Part A. We're going to talk about that in the next slide. If you do not qualify for Medicare Part A premium free, don't worry about it. We're going to cover your medical. We're going to cover your hospitalization because we know that Part A is hospitalization. Lacer's medical plan will cover your hospitalization costs. And there's no change in the subsidy formula at age 65. Also, what will happen is Lacers will reimburse you for your Part B premium if you have Medicare Part A. So if you enroll in Medicare Parts A and B, enroll in a Lacer Senior plan or an NPRP plan, you receive a medical subsidy. So what will happen is every month in your pension check, the $185 that you are having to pay to Social Security, we're going to give it back to you because you have Medicare Part A. So make sure that if you are eligible for Medicare Part A premium free, that you go ahead and do that. Lacers does not reimburse dependents or survivor for their Medicare Part B premiums. So keep that in mind. I like to call Medicare Part D, Medicare Part Don't. Do not do not change your Medicare Part D. A lot of times, I don't know if you guys have seen those commercials where they're saying, hey, we can give you lower drug prices. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to give you special treatment. And yes, if you choose to take your Medicare Part D and let them bill Medicare for that. So if our plans, the Lacers plans, has Medicare Part D embedded in them so that we can give you your drugs at a good price anyway. But there are people who will call and say, hey, we can do better. But if you do enroll your Medicare Part D outside of the Lacers plan, it will result in the terminations of your Lacers medical coverage. So if you can only assign your medical to one, you can only assign your medical plan to your one medical plan to your Medicare. So make sure that you don't assign your Medicare Part D to someone else unless you know exactly what you're doing and you know that it will terminate your Lacers plan. I've seen many people who get into that situation and they're like, no, I want to come back. Well, let's make sure that we don't have to do that. So you at least will do your homework before you assign your Medicare Part D to someone else. So let's talk about the income-related monthly adjustment amount. We deem it IRMAA. So IRMAA is a charge for additional Medicare Part B and D premiums. You are responsible for paying these additional amounts to remain on your Lacers plan. If you are single and your modified adjustment income is more than $103,000 per year, that's your retirement adjustment income, congratulations, you've done well. But you will be assessed an IRMAA for doing so well. So if you are married and your adjustment amount is $206,000 a month, great, but you will be assessed an IRMAA. So they're going to take a look at your internal revenue tax returns from, in this case, probably 22, 23, and determine how much money you made. And if you made these exorbitant amounts, or in LA, it's not exorbitant, it's just normal. But if you made these amounts of money, you will be assessed in IRMAA. And every month, I think the last time I checked, IRMAA was about $400 or $500 a month. So that's an additional amount that you'll have to pay for your Medicare. So make sure you keep that in mind. Also, they assessed in IRMAA. Let's just say, for example, you purchased a home and you got a bunch of money and you haven't used that money and it's showing up on your income, then they're going to assess you an IRMAA. Maybe you sold some stock and you got a bunch of money for one time, or you won the lotto, or whatever the reason why your income fluctuated for those particular years. You will be assessed an IRMAA for your Medicare. So keep that in mind when you're deciding to retire, because we have people who retire and they go like, I have to pay an extra $500. I didn't count on that. Well, make sure that you put this in your budget if you're in that income bracket. So when to enroll in Medicare? If you retire before age 65, we request that you enroll 3 months prior to turning age 65. We will mail you an age in packet letting you know. You don't have to call us. You don't have to let us know. We already know that you're turning age 65. We want to keep you uh, within the program. So we send you a packet automatically. We got people back there, they'll send you a packet. They say, oh, we've got these many people turning 65. Let's send them a packet to make sure that they're complying with our Medicare requirements. If you're retiring after age 65, LACERS will give you a special enrollment form to take to Medicare so that you can avoid any late enrollment penalties. Because when you go to Medicare and you've been, let's say you're 68 and now you're going to Medicare and you're saying, I want Medicare, they're going to be like, hey, where were you at age 65? Well, we'll give you a form called the special enrollment form to say, hey, I already had insurance. I really didn't need to do this. And they give you a waiver so that you can go ahead and not get those penalties. Let's talk about LACERS Well. LACERS Well is a program that we provide resources and activities for our retirees. They got movie clubs, they've got pickleball, they've got runners clubs, they got book clubs. We want you to participate in group activities. We want you to go on museum trips. We want you to have parties. Um, LACERS Well is a great program. We've got some great people over there. You may want to even become a LACERS Well champion. So, a LACERS Well champion, let's just say you like to line dance and you want to get a whole bunch of people together and line dance on a specific every third Thursday at 2 p.m. because you're retired. Why not? Well, LACERS Well will take your event and they'll say, okay, so you like line dancing? Let's promote your event to some other retirees. And we can get a whole bunch of line dancers to come around to your area every Thursday at 2 p.m. And we'll do some line dancing for an hour. Why not? But we want to keep you guys in group activities. We want to keep your retirement healthy and safe. So if you are considering retirement, please consider LACERS Well. They are a great group of folks, and you can keep up with your city family and participate in for good quality of life while you're retired. So let's talk about legal planning for your future. So during life, the LACERS Special Durable Power of Attorney. If you have someone that you want to speak on your behalf when you call LACERS, please fill out the special durable power of attorney because we are very committed to your security. We will not talk to anybody when they call us. If someone calls and says, "Oh, I need to know my husband's pay date," or "I need to know my dad's this," or whatever, we will not talk to them. So make sure that if you do have someone that you do want us to talk to besides you, that you fill out the LACER special durable power of attorney, and maybe your husband or your child or whatever can speak on your behalf. And then we will allow that person to do so if we have that signed document by you. Also, go ahead and get your living trust together. These things are extremely important. We will accept the California Uniform Statutory Power of Attorney if it has all the documentation that we need in place of the LACER Special Durable Power of Attorney. So if you already have an existing power of attorney, go ahead and submit that. We'll submit that to our legal team and they'll submit that to the city attorney and see if he'll accept it. And then they can speak on your behalf as well. A living will, if you need to get that going, along with the living trust. Long-term care insurance, we do not offer that, but you may go to City Club. They may have something for you there, but it is something to consider. After death, there is estate taxes, probates, wills, and trusts. So make sure we're thinking about all these things in retirement. Again, the durable power of attorney, we talked about that. So when to contact LACERs? If you move or change your contact information, please let us know. We have your check. Even though you may be getting a direct deposit, we need to know if you move, because what's going to happen is we do not forward your statement. So what's going to happen is those statements are going to come back to us. And we're going to be like, wait a minute, what's going on? Is this person, what happened to them? Are they okay? So we will stop your check if you do not let us know that you've moved. So if you need to make a beneficiary change, we have the forms on our website. Please go ahead and use those forms. We have what's called a secure document upload. You can download the form, fill it out, sign it, securely upload it back to our website. If you have a change in family status, you get a death or adoption, or you get married or whatever, let us know. If you have issues with your health plan, we have a whole health staff here. They are advocates for you, and they're here just for you and to help you. If one of our plans is not carrying your medication or somebody's not doing what we promised, please let our health staff know. We're here to help you. After retirement, we try to communicate with you as much as possible. If there's something going on, we want to let you know. We communicate through our retiree newsletter. If you get that newsletter, just kind of peruse it and see if you see anything new, or they have great information on there. The paycheck flyers will tell you everything that's going on. If there's a cost of living raise, if there's something going on, if we get a new GM, all of the information, whenever we need to impart information to you, we do it through the paycheck flyer. Health plan open enrollment meetings and mailings. Our health plan open enrollment, we go out to different communities and we reach out to as many LA communities as we can during our open enrollment process. We also have our open enrollment process on our webinars. So our health plan health carriers, they're conversing with you, they're telling you what's going on. So even if you do not live in the Los Angeles area, you can still participate in our health plan open enrollment. Lacers.org is a wealth of information. We always keep you up to date. If you ever have a question about anything at Lacers, just go ahead and put it in that magnifying search glass and you can get an answer, I'm sure. Or at least we will be able to give you some information. It may not be pertinent to your specific self, but it will give you some information as to what you may be looking for. The Lacers YouTube channel, oh my God, it is so great. If you go to Lacers YouTube, you can find almost anything that you're interested in. They've got retirement seminars, how to fill out the retirement application portal, anything about Medicare, anything about buybacks, All of that is on our YouTube channel with somebody explaining to you in depth. If you didn't get a good enough explanation from somewhere, try the YouTube channel. My Lacers online account access, that is awesome because you can go there, you can register for seminars, you can get your statements, you can see your monthly deposits because once you've retired, you no longer have workspace or was it workday. You also have, you can go in there and you can fill out, you can download a statement to show how much your monthly is in case you have to give it to someone to show maybe you're getting a loan or buying a car or something like that, and they want to know how much you make per month. So since you don't have workday, you can always use My Lacers. So make sure you register for the My Lacers online account access and go ahead and use your personal email because you won't have your work email anymore. Use your personal email and the Lacers Well newsletter. Again, make sure you subscribe and like our official Lacers YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@LacersOfficial. You can contact us. You can call us. You can email us. If you want to email us, you could go to lacers.services@lacers.org. If you have a health question, please email lacers.health@lacers.org. You can visit us by appointment only. Please, you can make an appointment online, but we're here in Chinatown, 977 North Broadway. You can visit us there. If you want to just drop off some papers, you can do that. We still do the mail, and go to our website and go to the YouTube channel. I want to go over one more thing with you really quick. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to show you how to get to our I'm going to show you how to get to our website so that you could see how much you'll have to pay for your, and how you can calculate how much you will be paying for your health care. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll go to retirees, and then we'll go to health benefits. And we're going to go to the health benefits guide. So as you can see, the 2025 health benefits guide is there. And that pulls up our health benefits guide. I'm going to start us off on page 50. So if you look here at the top, it says retired member only, not in Medicare or with Medicare Part B. You'll see the monthly premiums are $1,720.50 for Anthem Blue Cross. If you're choosing Kaiser, the premium is $1,117.28. If you're choosing Anthem HMO, it's $1,374.14. So let's go across to, let's say, the service credit years. Let's say someone has 18 years of service. Then the amount that they would pay for Anthem Blue Cross is $51.12. The amount that they would pay for Kaiser is $0. The amount they would pay for Anthem HMO is $0. I often get people asking me, I have to work 25 years in order to pay nothing for my insurance. Well, yeah, it all depends on who you're covering. So if you look across at 19 years, someone could not have to pay for any of our plans if they're only covering themselves. So as you can see, after 19 years, it's no cost to you for any of our plans. So let's move on to a retired member and a dependent. That means a retired member and a dependent could be you, could be a retired member and a spouse, or a retired member and a child. So let's go here. If we go across after 25 years, a retired member and one dependent for Anthem PPO, it's $1,117.38. That's your cost. If they're choosing Kaiser, it's no cost. If they're choosing Anthem HMO, it's $424.67 a month. That is your cost. That's how much we're going to deduct from your pension. Now let's look at a family plan. So let's look at a retired member and family, not in Medicare or with Medicare Part B. So if we're looking at 25 years for if the member chooses a retired member and family, that means one or more children, that means a spouse, a member, a spouse, and one or more children, then it's your Anthem PPO, their cost is going to be $1,726.78. If they choose Kaiser, it's $586.34. If they choose Anthem HMO, it's $1,254.09. That's their cost. That's how much we're going to take out of their pension check. So that's the last thing I want to share with you right now. Does anyone have any questions at all that I can answer?
I don't see any pending questions, Sandra.
No questions? Okay. Well, I thank you guys for your time. I thank you for spending this time with us. We also have a survey. If you look on your link that you received, we have a survey. These sessions are very important and we want to tailor them to you. Tell us what we did good, tell us what we did bad, how we can improve them. We are here for you. These are your sessions. So tell us what we can do, how we can make it better, or if it's good or not good at all. So anyway, thank you guys so much for your time and have a great day and enjoy your lunch.
Have a good day.